Hey guys, on to making part 3 of this video here on how to paint your DCP trucks. First thing I want to say, in the first video I had mentioned using the airplane stripper to strip your parts, and I forgot to mention, guys, don't use this on any plastic parts. It'll eat the fire out of them, it'll destroy them. Use it on your die cast, your brass parts, your stainless parts if you've got them. But no plastic. In fact, if you say you take your chassis apart and you've got little plastic tabs from disassembly, like off if you break the fenders off or tanks or whatever, and you spray that stuff on there and you let it sit 20-30 minutes, it'll start to gum them up and they'll start to disintegrate, and you can actually take a toothpick and push the plastic out or dig it out. So it's handy in that way, but yeah, definitely please don't use it on your parts. I'm sorry I didn't mention that in the first video. Anyway, now tonight I've got this thing taped off here, ready to lay the second coat of paint on it, and I had a little bit of a change in plans, so to speak. Originally the secondary color on this truck was going to be Viper GTS Blue Pearl. I stopped by R&E the other day to talk to the guys about a color for another truck I'm going to do here coming up pretty quick for a customer, and he gave me some cans of paint that people had ordered and never came back for, and one of them was, it's Harley Davidson Impact Blue, which the Toy Truck Mafia guys, I think I posted it on a page the other day. I sprayed it out with the other colors and couldn't really tell because I sprayed it on a piece of, or I sprayed it on a paper plate. Anyway, I couldn't really tell the color, but I sprayed them out on the cap, and it actually looks like it's a pretty awesome color. It looks like it's a few shades lighter than the Viper Blue, which I think will do better with the silver, so I'm going to give it a shot. Anyway, back to the truck here. With the, you can see I've got it taped off. For my initial tape off right here for making my straight line, this is 3M vinyl pinstriping tape. It's 1/8 inch thick by, I think there's 30 yards on here, so it'll last you a lifetime of building trucks, trailers, whatever you're doing with it. It's nice and stretchy. It follows contours good. It gets in the cracks good if you push them in. Not like regular masking tape, which this is also 3M automotive grade, which I have the blue backed off with. Excuse me. Anyway, so that's the two tapes I use when I do my two-tones or do any paint jobs that I do, is, like I said, the 3M vinyl tape and then 3M automotive grade masking tape. Excuse me, guys. So anyway, I got this thing taped off a little bit earlier, and also before I go any further, I want to apologize for, in video 2 I said I was going to come back and show you guys when I did the second coat on this truck. Well, it accidentally got deleted, but y'all didn't miss anything. It was just me laying the second coat of silver on here, and painted the chassis on the truck, which of course doing the color change I had it in the Viper Blue, so I stripped it down, cleaned it off, and then I got it shot back in primer, and I'll do it aside from this cab here maybe tonight or tomorrow or whatever. Anyway, so when you do this stuff on this blue tape here, the 3M, when I go to tape my trucks off to do my two-tone, I find like a reference point for a straight line, which would be like the hood rivets on this 379 hood that run along through there. And just lay it down, stretch out however long a piece of tape I need, and just hold it straight as I can, flat as I can. Just tap it down, and then usually take my t-shirt or whatever and push it down real good and tight against your body. Make sure it's good and secured down. You don't want any bleed up underneath the paint when you go to spray it, which is almost inevitable. It's going to happen anyway, but you try to avoid it. So another thing I'll mention, where I've got my clips on these trucks, you can see there's not going to be paint there, or the back of the hood, or like here in the front of this little part of the sleeper, or the back of the cab. When you go to put it back together, nobody's going to see that, so it's, it's nothing to worry about. You can Like on the hood here, stock DCP, this will be black in here on the back side of the hood. This will also be black behind your grill because you can see through the grill, so you always go back with a brush and like flat black paint and paint that over. Anyway, and when you go to spray it, when you get your tape laid down, like I said, just make sure you've got it pressed down really, really well to like the little door here to get in the around it, and the lights on the back of the cab. Any crevices, door jams, so to speak, you just want to make sure it's pressed in really good. You can take your fingernail and kind of roll it in there. Sometimes, like after I spray this first coat and go back, I want to make sure I press it back in because the stuff will kind of pull out a little bit from your crevices and cracks. So of course you can't be in there with your finger tapping on your wet paint or your tacky paint. So I'll take a toothpick and just kind of come in and push them back in there to kind of get them tied up against the details and whatnot. Anyway, when you do this, you're probably going to have some bleed through. It's going to come back up under the tape when you spray it. That being said, it's not that big of a deal. I wouldn't freak out if you go to peel your tape off and you've got some bleed through. And what I do is to go touch that stuff up if it's not terrible. I'll just take whatever, like it would bleed up onto the silver on this truck, and I'll just take my can of silver paint and spray it on a piece of plastic or aluminum foil or just something where the paint's not going to soak right in, and take a real fine tipped detail brush and go back when it's fairly good and dry and just touch those little spots up and then let it dry for a while, and then it's ready to clear. But that's pretty much the gist of that. You just want to make sure that's taped off really well, get them as straight as you can. Oh, sorry. Reference points, like on these trucks, trying to get your paint lines to go as straight as you can along the whole body. What I did on this one is followed, like I said, right above the rivets on the hood, held the hood up next to the cab, found my reference point where it would sit, and taped along there. The sleeper was just a little bit trickier as far as getting straight on it. So I counted the rivets up from the door handle on the cab and just kind of held everything up close to where it should be. Counted rivets up on this 379 sleeper to where it should be, and then just went straight all the way around it. And hopefully it turns out okay. We'll find out. If not, I'll strip it down and start over again. But anyway, that's pretty much how I prep for the paint on that. And now I'm going to make sure I've got everything pretty well shoved into my cracks and crevices. Try to minimize the bleed from the next coat of paint, and then we'll see how it turns out. Like I said, on these little cracks like the door here, just take your fingernail, thumbnail, whatever. Make sure you work this tape in there real good and tight and try to minimize your bleed through, or bleed under, so to speak. And like I said, if it happens, you can touch it up. It's not terrible. If it is terrible, just strip it down and start over. It's one of the cool things about building these little trucks and die cast. You can strip it as many times as you need if you screw up. So try not to screw up too much, but it happens. Alright, I think it's good. So anyway, I've got this stuff shook up pretty well. I've got my fenders on here. And I was saying in a previous video about the little roach clips, or whatever you guys call them. Anyway, that will slide right in these little holes. They're good for holding fenders, drive shafts, small parts, just whatever you need. They work good for that. So enough of the gab. Let's lay some paint on this truck. And I had this shook up pretty good before I started filming, so anyway. Alright, as I said before, just light coats, Try not to get any runs or sags or anything in your paint, and 10-12 inches away. And matter of fact, I think I'm going to move this fender over a little bit so I'm not getting too much spray from another part. I think that should be okay. All right. Now this stuff will come out a little thicker than what the Model Master, like I showed you guys in the previous video, will come out, but it's not terrible. And this stuff, like the Model Master, is actually pretty forgiving. And you'll go to lay the first coat on, and it might look pretty thick, but as soon as it dries, it'll start drying, and it'll kind of shrink, I guess you would say, and it'll settle into all the details on the truck, and it'll look a lot better than it did when it first went on. So, and even if it does that, you can kind of adjust your distance or what have you. I'm going a little thicker with this than I did with the primer, just because it's coming out a little thicker. I mean, it's all just a big learning curve, guys, when it comes to doing your paint. It's an art, not a science. Let's just say that. I mean, everything. Paints are going to behave differently. Primers are going to behave differently. Different temperatures, it's going to act differently. There's no right or wrong to doing it, so to speak. It's just, you pick a can up, you start spraying, you'll learn, what to do, what not to do. I mean, I'm just trying to tell you guys how, what works for me, and hopefully it works for you all, but if not, it's just, some of us guys do it the same, some of us do it differently. Hopefully what I'm doing here helps you all out, just to get going. So I'm going to lay this on just a little bit thicker than I would normally, but I think it's going to work pretty good. Looks like a pretty awesome color too. Alright, I think that's good. Like I said before, always turn your cap or your can upside down. Spray just until the paint quits coming out. It clears your nozzle. And that way it's not gummed up if you go to use it again. I lost the cap. Okay, now that that's on there, I'm going to let it dry for 5 to 10 minutes probably. And then I'm going to come back and shoot my second coat on it like I do with my other paints and my primer. And then I'll peel the paint off and see how bad my bleeds are. Hopefully there's none, or they're very minimal. But as I said before, if it happens, you just take your color that your other paint is bled underneath and onto, and just take a little brush and touch it up. If it's not perfect, it's not that big a deal. None of the stuff's going to be perfect after you strip it down. Try to get it as close as you can, but it's just not going to happen. Anyway, when you go to peel your tape off, take your, of course, your masking tape off. And after you spray your second coat or third coat and what's going to be your final, let it set up till it's just almost dry. You still want it just a little bit damp when you go to pull your blue, your first coat of tape off, your actual tape that's making your lines. And then when you do that, when you go to pull the tape off, make sure you pull it out and you pull down and towards the color you just painted. Don't pull it up, because you may stretch the paint that's still a little bit moist and pull it up onto your first color. Always pull it down and away to where you're pulling towards your new color. That way, if anything, a little bit of the tacky paint stretches out, it's going to go back down onto your first color, not up onto your second color, not your first color. and it's just less stuff you got to mess with later. So anyway, all that being said, this is starting to dry out and it's looking pretty awesome. So we'll let it sit and dry, and then I'll probably shoot one more coat on it and come back, and I'll make a video on the clear and a few other things for you guys, and as I said, we'll go from there. Thanks for watching.